welcome to this week's The Nutmeg Assist podcast. Myself, Rithwik, the host, and as usual, I'm joined along with my co-host, Chris. Hey, Chris, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm not bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, all doing good right now.
Staying safe, yeah. Over
yeah,
there, so I know it's a bit hectic over there at the minute.
yeah. I mean, a family member tested positive a couple of weeks back, but now he's fine. So
Oh, that's good news, mate.
hopefully it's good news. So yeah,
That's good.
quite good.
And you're happy with the result last night, are you?
I mean, I'm happy with the result though, but I'm pretty sad with it's a pretty bad condition with the sleep schedule right now because of all the football games, all the midnight games here in India. So
Yeah.
that's there, yeah, stuff like that. So yeah, happy to see Thiago getting his first goal yesterday.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah.
So coming back to the main topic for this episode, this is a bonus episode for those who are listening. This is about Inter Milan or Internazionale winning the Scudetto, breaking Juventus's monopoly for years and years. So this is a huge episode. We're going to be looking or diving deep into some stats as well as some tactics as to how Inter has kind of pulled this off under Antonio Conte. A year ago, we both me and Chris, we spoke to Nima Tavele from Sempre Inter, who's a journalist, who's a well-known journalist. He also works for the Italian football podcast as well, which is a really good podcast. So we spoke with him a year back, and he said that he probably had doubts over Conte staying at the club because of how volatile his figure was. But luckily enough for the club, he stood, he corrected his mistakes, and he's gone on to win the Scudetto. What an achievement, though, Chris, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's the first one in 11 years. It's the 19th as well, which it takes them one above AC Milan now in terms of Scudettos as well, I believe. So, but when you think about it, when you think about Antonio Conte as a manager, I think it was inevitable that he would win the league at some point. I think they finished a point behind Juventus last year, runners up in the Europa League. So they were certainly building towards another title challenge this year. And like you said, Rithwik, it was touch and go whether he was actually going to stay in pre-season at Inter Milan. But yeah, thankfully for them, he has done, and it's looked like a foregone conclusion really since about probably January, I'd say, maybe February. It's looked like inevitable that they would go on and win it, certainly with the run of form that they've been hitting anyway. And they've been fantastic to watch. I've watched them a few times this year. There's been a lot of reports out there saying that they've been a bit defensive or things like that. I think anyone knows, or any Chelsea fans certainly would agree, that Antonio Conte's football's not just because you're certainly good defensively, which his teams are. They're still enjoyable to watch. They're still fast in transition. So I don't buy that. I've watched them a number of times this season, and I've always been. I always enjoy watching this Inter Milan team play.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing that you mentioned there about Inter being defensive. I mean, if you look at their pressing pattern, you can probably see a trend that as the season went on, their pressing also dropped down, which means they were not pressing really well. And if you look at their PPDA numbers, based on understat, which is like passes allowed per defensive action in the opposition half. If you look at their pressing numbers that way, they are probably the 13th best in the Seria, which is not really surprising if you watch them play in the latter halves of the season, because they press less, but they've used they've actually added more value to their possession. They've had like quick interchanges. There was this goal against Sassuolo, which they scored. I think it was Sassuolo, where there was a quick interchange, three players quick interchange in their own half, then a quick switch back to Ashley Young on the left hand side, and Lukaku, Hakimi, and Barella making runs into the box, and I think it was Lukaku who headed in. So that's the kind of goals that you got from Inter all season. They've scored some really, really amazing goals. And just looking at the league table, 35 games, 85 points, from an expected points of 71 or 72 approx. And they have actually overperformed their XG, which is great. They've conceded just 30 goals, which is the best defensive record in the league as well. The best attacking record in the league, 79 goals, joint best attacking, along with Atalanta with 79 goals scored. Just considered 30 goals, which is the best. Just 2 losses as well this season. So this has been a fantastic season for Antonio Conte's men. And tactically, Lucas, I would like to actually ask you about the tactical aspect. What do you think were the patterns do you think were standing out though from Antonio Conte's Inter this season?
Yeah, well, you've sort of touched on it yourself there with the pressing stats, because they actually started the season playing and experimenting with a 3-4-1-2, which is quite unusual for Antonio Conte. His teams traditionally play a 3-5-2, although at Chelsea it was a little bit more of a 3-4-3 due to his accommodation of Eden Hazard. But he actually experimented playing with a number 10 in the form of Christian Eriksen, and the wing-backs playing essentially as out-and-out wingers. And if you look at the results at the start of the season, they were scoring some goals, but they were also conceding a lot as well. And it probably hindered them in the Champions League group stage. As we know, they went out early in the group stage. But I watched them a lot at the start of the season. Games like Fiorentina, the first game of the season, they won 4-3, beat Benevento 5-2. So they were outscoring teams and they were creating a lot of chances and they were overwhelming teams, specifically from an attacking perspective, but they weren't killing teams off at the beginning. So that 3-4-1-2, he cut that back. Probably around the middle of the group stage in the Champions League, probably after the defeat to Real Madrid, and he went back to his traditional 3-5-2, which there was no more. It wasn't a high line dropped. There was no more pressing high, which sort of marries into what you're saying there with the pressing stats. And from that point on, they've just I wouldn't go. Maybe if you look at the run of form, they've lost one game since that change. So it's been quite an intriguing season for them tactically, just because they started playing that formation at the start, a formation that you wouldn't associate an Antonio Conte team with. And ever since he switched back, and if I don't know if you can remember his time at Chelsea, Rithwik, when he won the league in his first season there as well.
Yeah.
They started the season playing a 4-3-3, didn't they? And then they got beat, but there was that sort of famous game at the Emirates where they got beat by Arsenal 3-0, and then he switched back to a 3-4-3, and then he just went on a run that just essentially won them the league, and they didn't get beat. I think did they win 14 games on the run, was it? I think from like November onwards. So it was quite intriguing tactically to see him do that and use players as well. Another using players such as Perisic as a wing back and essentially getting the best out of him. Players like Darmian and getting the best out of him. Ashley Young getting the best out of him, and Christian Eriksen as well, who looked like it wasn't going to work out for him, didn't it? It looked like Conte didn't fancy him at one point. Was struggling to fit him in, especially after this switch. But he's took the number 10 out of the team in that 3-4-1-2, and he's essentially playing a number 6 now instead. And that's another switch that he made. And he's played Eriksen there sometimes as well. And he looks like the player he once was at Tottenham now, and he's playing really well, and he's now part of the team, part of the squad, and looks like he's a key member of that squad now. So it's good coaching, really. It's a good coaching, and there's very few managers around at the moment that can actually do that. And that's why I believe he's certainly one of the top coaches in world football at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the more important things that you mentioned was that they were conceding goals early this season. So that's actually a very, very tricky stat. So in the first 17 games, they conceded, I think, 23 goals. And in their last 18 games, I mean, the last probably after that 2-2 draw against AS Roma, I think after they've played 18 games since then, and they've conceded just 7 goals in that period.
Yeah.
And all just a single goal in 7 games, which means they've kept 11 clean sheets as well in the last 18 games, which is a magnificent defensive record, to be honest. And one of the main reasons for that is having a fixed back three. I know Milan Skriniar kind of struggled a bit last season. He was finding it hard to transition from a 4 at the back to 3 at the back system. There were a lot of stick being thrown at him and probably transfer rumors mulling around him as well. But this season, the rise of Alessandro Bastoni, who's probably been one of my favorite centre backs in Europe this season. Left-footed, very calm, really good passer of the ball. Has the long passing, has short passing. He progresses the ball well. I recently did a small data analysis article on him. I really went and watched his clips as well once again, and I really, really liked the way he played. So Bastoni, De Vrij, and Skriniar have actually been a solid pair. You look at the playing time that they've had in Seria this season. Out of, from Inter, Bastoni, De Vrij, and Skriniar are probably in the top 6 most played players, and one of them is Samir Handanovic, who's the goalkeeper, obviously. So he gets, obviously, if you put him out, I think only Nico Barella and Romelu Lukaku has played more than De Vrij and Skriniar. Bastoni is the most played outfield player of that Inter Milan team this season in the Serie A. So that speaks a lot about how good that youngster has been. He's just 22, and he might definitely probably knock Roberto Mancini's door for the Euros, a starting spot in the Euros as well. So I think a key part of Inter breezing through in the last, or probably after that early, mix-up was strengthening the defense or getting a proper defensive player, or defensive organization, and having the 3 players fit and ready whenever they were needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've touched on Bastoni there. He's been really good this season. Whenever I've seen him playing as well, I think balance is the key, isn't it? I think playing this formation the way Conte does, a 3-5-2 can on paper essentially look like a very defensive formation, but it can also, when you're an attacker, be a very attacking formation. And if you get the balance right within the team, and your coaches transition correctly, it can be a formidable formation, really, especially if it's mastered. And excuse me, and it does. It seems like Conte, it's his tried and tested formation, isn't it? He's a master of that formation. But you made a point there of Bastoni being left-footed. For me, modern day football now, if you're going to play out from the back, in the way that Inter Milan do, or most teams do now, from the goalkeeper, or play from the goalkeeper, you need that balance. Especially if you're playing with 3, you need your left foot. You need your left centre half. He has to be left-footed for me, because if he's not, then it makes it a lot easier for the opposition to pressure high and cut you off. And a perfect. When you see it in the Premier League, you see a number of teams now playing out from the goal, playing out from the back, or playing from the goalkeeper, as you will, and they're not playing with left-footed centre halves, and essentially they box themselves in, because if you come across a team that is really clever with the pressing and sets pressing triggers, then you're going to lose the ball. But when you watch Inter Milan do it, I don't know about you, Rithwik, but when you look at their centre halves, not only are they all well balanced and well suited to each other, they can play out from the back, but they're also really good defensively as well. It's like their back 3 has got like a mix of everything for me. And yeah, like I said, Bastoni at the moment is looking like he's going to go on to be certainly a regular in the national squad for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like you mentioned, that's a very fair point as well. Like, they have a mix of talents and a mix of abilities, which has probably added, it's like putting different colors into a single painting and make it look more beautiful. It's probably similar to that, because they have variety of skill sets, the centre backs, and I think they've done really well in maximizing everyone's abilities as well. So I think that's one of the main reasons why they've been able to breeze off so early and win the Scudetto probably much earlier than before, I guess. But also, I'm not probably going to talk too much about Juventus's huge drop-off under Andrea Pirlo, but that also probably took some pressure off them I guess that probably took some pressure off them as well. But from defense to midfield to attack, the midfield and the attack, Nico Barella, another player who's been like solid this season. He was solid last season as well. And he is one player again, another player that I really, really, really like because of his variety of skill sets. You want him to play on the wide, he will play on the wide. You want him to play in the center, he'll play in the center. He has a variety of skill sets. He's good with his passing. He makes those darting runs into the box and gets in on the end of crosses, or is there in the right position when you need someone there to strike the ball. He has 3 goals and 7 assists this season, which is fairly good. Which I don't think is bad. It's fairly good, and he's picked up just 5 yellow cards. But again, you move into the attack. Romelu Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez, 37 goals between them. Lukaku has 21, Martinez has 16, and Lukaku has 10 assists and Martinez has 5 assists as well. So this is really, really huge. So Lukaku was probably always brushed off as kind of a small liability in England, which I kind of hated at that moment. Although he was playing for the clubs which were seen as rivals for my team, Liverpool, Everton, Manchester United, Chelsea at one stage as well. So although he was playing for these clubs, he still had that skill set. But he was probably a bit underrated by a lot of fans. And moving to Inter, he's probably set the world on fire. I think we discussed this probably a few weeks back, right? When we talked about the top 3 centre forwards in the last 2 seasons, Lukaku's name popped up, and that shows how good he's been at Inter under Antonio Conte.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we mentioned like you've just said, we mentioned this on a podcast. I've had the privilege, I think, of watching Lukaku a number of times. He spent 4 seasons at Everton. I've obviously got a season ticket at Everton, so I watched him near enough every week for them for 4 seasons. And he's certainly the best striker I've seen in an Everton shirt, and is probably the best striker I'm ever likely to see at the moment, given the way he keeps going on and on and on. But when you look at it, I know we've mentioned in that podcast, I think it was last month, we're talking about last 2 seasons, he scored goals regularly now for 7 years. So what I'm seeing now in Italy is not a shock for me. He's a born goal scorer, Romelu Lukaku, and he's a top striker. Certainly one of the best in Europe at the minute, or in the world. Maybe on current form is the best, especially when you look there at the assists. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's the highest number of assists in the league as well. He's joint top, isn't he, in terms of assists as well? So he's 21 goals, second to Ronaldo, and he's joint top in the assists as well. I thought people were quite, even I used to listen to Everton fans criticise him because he didn't run enough, and I remember, and I think he was wrongly labelled for that, I thought, because he played in a completely different system here at Everton, because he played up front on his own. He's playing up front on his own for a team that is not a top team as well. So you could probably argue that there was maybe a little bit of certainly under Ronald Koeman, maybe there was a little bit of lack of service, but he still scored 26 goals in all competitions. That's in his last season at Everton, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, what can you say about it? What can't you say about this lad? I mean, I thought personally when he left Everton to go to Manchester United, and it didn't quite go as well at Manchester United, I thought maybe I'd seen the best of him, or Everton as a club had seen the best of him. But obviously, since he's gone on to Inter Milan, he's gone on to a new level. And I think also as well, I always say this about strikers. I don't think you can judge strikers in the modern day game when they're playing up front on their own. I've seen like Timo Werner now at Chelsea. He goes from playing as part of a 2 regularly at Leipzig, and then you're playing up front on his own in a system for Chelsea. And even though they're a top team, you've got to add other attributes to your link-up play's got to improve, and that takes time. That needs to be worked on. Now Lukaku's gone to playing as part of a 2 now, and you can see the difference straight away. You can see the benefits that having another striker up front alongside you brings. It's almost as if he's gone on to a new level because he's playing up front with someone. He can focus more and improve. It's like you get more time to focus more and improve more on your game. And I don't know, maybe you can tell me from a statistical point of view, is there a more lethal partnership now in world football than Martinez and Lukaku?
I mean, it's hard to judge though, isn't it? Because people probably have like a trios and a duos, or probably even a quartet. Probably, if you look at Manchester United, etc. This kind of sets of control.
Yeah, it's unusual, isn't it, to see sort of two strikers now, two out-and-out strikers playing up front. Given the fact that 4-3-3 is so prominent around world football, and even the 4-5-1, 4-2-3-1, it all essentially is based with one striker, and obviously you get the wide forwards, don't you?
Exactly, yeah.
The Salahs and the Manes, and do you class them as striker? Can you include them as part of a partnership? I'm not so sure. But Lukaku and those stats that you've brought out there speak for themselves. He's gone on to great things. But again, I will say it's down to coaching as well. And I think I can't think of, for the life of me now, have you ever seen a player under Antonio Conte in the last 10 years who hasn't improved? I can't think of a player he's not improved. You can go right through this Inter Milan squad. I think there was a quote. I'm not sure if it was last season. I don't know if it was before this season or before the season before. And Conte said it must have been. I think it was after last season, but before this season. I think Conte comes out, and I was reading the interview, but he said, "If I improve every player in the squad, we will win the league." And I'm not sure if it was word for that, because obviously I think the interview would have been in Italian and then translated. And that's what he's done. We mentioned before the likes of Christian Eriksen, Darmian, even Sanchez. If you look at the form that Sanchez, even though he's played a bit part role at Inter Milan, if you look at that Sanchez compared to the Sanchez at Manchester United, he's playing an important role. When he's come in, and whenever he's come in, he's done really well, and he's looked like a really good player. And then you compare that to the Sanchez that we've seen at Manchester United, it's like worlds apart, and it's down to coaching. It's down to having a clear idea of what you want to do as a manager. This is the way we're going to play, and I'm going to coach you to play this system. And when you play it and I coach you, we will get the best out of you. And it's just he's a top manager, I think, and I don't think you can underestimate his importance in this Scudetto win for the club. And it's a funny when I was doing some research about it, and it was a funny little thing that I noticed. When he took over Juventus, he inherited a team that finished 7th. So when Conte took over Juventus, it wasn't the Juventus now. It certainly wasn't the Juventus that Pirlo took over. By nowhere near it. They finished 7th. So he inherited that team, and he finished, in his first season, they finished first and he went undefeated. At Chelsea, he inherited a team that finished 10th in his first season, won the league. And at Inter, he's done the same thing, although he obviously finished 2nd in his first season by a point, got to the final of the Europa League as well. And now they've gone on winning the league. So it's hard. It's hard not to say that this, obviously Lukaku and Martinez have been crucial to it. Barella has been crucial to it. The balance of the back three and their attributes that they bring as individuals have been crucial to it. But for me, you take Antonio Conte away from this club in the summer, or if it would have went pear-shaped in the summer and he would have moved on, I don't think we'd be sitting here now talking about Inter winning this league.
That's a very good point, though. I think this is more like a well coached side. A lot of people on the internet, Twitter especially, don't rate Antonio Conte really much, which I find it annoying. Recently, I've come across a lot of tweets saying that he plays like really an attractive football, but does he get the results? Does he improve players individually? And does he take teams who are not the best in the league to winning the league titles? He ticks all these boxes, and that's why he's such a really good manager. I know he's a volatile figure. He's a very volatile figure, and you need someone, and that's where Marotta deserves credit. He's kind of held Conte so hard, so firm into the seat at Inter. He's not let the relationship get volatile. He's not let the relationship get bad, and that's huge credit to Marotta for the way he's done that. And when you back a manager like Conte, when you keep the relationship good, and when you give him a team or players that he wants, you get good results. And you mentioned about Alexis Sanchez as well. I looked at the Seria stats this season. Alexis Sanchez has a goal or assist every 90 minutes, which is like huge. He's the sixth best in the Seria when you look at those numbers. I know he's played just about 1,000 minutes. He's played a big part role this season, but that is just below Cristiano Ronaldo, and that's really good. Even though even if it's just about 1,000 minutes. So I think Conte's ability to improve players. Even Christian Eriksen was probably he kind of looked out of favor with Conte, and it kind of probably people were wondering if he did he did make the right decision to move to Inter, but everything just changed. That's what Conte does when he really likes a player, and when he really wants a player to succeed.
Yeah.
So that speaks a lot about Antonio Conte's coaching, management skill as well. So that's a very, very good point.
And of course, I mean, people might listen to this and say, "Oh, well, he's had money to spend and things like that." And you can't argue with the club financially backing him. But that's an easy that's an easy thing for people to say now. Oh, well, he's got the money. He's had the money to financially back. You've still got to get the best out of the players. There's a lot of teams in world football that have money. You've still got to get the best out of these players. Do you know what I mean? And Inter Milan have got quite a big squad. And the stats that you said there about Sanchez, I didn't know those stats. All I knew from watching Inter Milan that Sanchez has come in, and whenever he's come in, he's a squad player now, but whenever he's come in, he's done really well and he's contributed and he's become effective. And that's a sign of good management. When you get your squad players to come in and play, essentially they are squad players, so they're not going to play regularly. But when you utilise them effectively, then that's a good sign. That's a very good manager and very good coach. So you look at Sanchez. So he's contributed in statistically. They're fantastic stats. They're fantastic. You can't argue with them. You cannot argue with them. So to say that backs up my point that he's made him an effective player. I mentioned before Darmian. Now he scored 2 very crucial goals this year. When he's come in again, he's been very effective. He scored 2 crucial goals. I think I'm not sure. They might have been winners against Parma and Calgary, or certainly an equaliser anyway. Eriksen, he's converted Christian Eriksen to essentially a number 6. These are things that you just don't see in football anymore. You're taking a manager, you're taking a player that is essentially a creative player and who's traditionally known to playing high up the pitch, or certainly affecting the game in the final third of the pitch, and you're playing him in a defensive role and getting the best out of him. And Perisic as well. Perisic looked like he was finished at Inter Milan. He went from winning the Champions League and playing a crucial part for the Champions League, Bayern Munich's Champions League win, as a winger, which essentially he always has been for Croatia, a very good winger as well. Yeah. And he got played sort of off the front one under Conte, and it didn't look like it was going to work out. And he's turned Perisic from a winger into a very, very good wing back. And again, it's a role these days that I think people overestimate how easy it is to play. And you can't label it as anything other but very good coaching. Every player that plays in this team always, whether they play regularly or not, from what I've seen this year, looks like they know what they're doing when they come onto the pitch. And that is a result of very good coaching on the training field. Every player looks like they can just fit into this system and play the way Inter Milan play from week to week. And there's a lot more to it. And obviously we can't go over it essentially because it'll turn into like a 3-hour, 4-hour podcast. We could sit here talking about this all day. And there's, like you said, there's a lot of people out there now that will say, oh, well, I don't like Antonio Conte's football. And when it comes to that sort of thing of football, it's all about opinion. Some people like attacking football, some people like defensive football. But just because a person doesn't like it on the eye, it doesn't mean it's not good football. Do you know what I mean? Everyone likes different factors of football. I find it very entertaining because there's too many teams out there at the moment that you can label as an attacking team, or they're a defensive team, they're an attacking team. This team can do both, and I think that is the epitome of a very good team. If your team can do both, and the stats that you said, the highest goal scoring, I think the joint with Atalanta, aren't they, for the 79 goals scored this season you mentioned?
Yeah.
Obviously, Atalanta have been playing today, so that might change. And they've also got the best defensive record with 30 goals conceded. And you're telling me that they can't attack and they're too defensive? No, sorry, I'm not buying that. They can just do both.
Exactly. And I mean, this probably brings us to the end of this episode as well. I mean, I guess we made a lot of sensible points, I guess, for the listeners. So, yeah, this is Conte's here, this is Inter's here, and I think it's summing up, I think it's really, really great to see the monopoly end in the Seria. I hope it ends in the Bundesliga next season as well, because I don't know, this is a personal thing, I guess, but I always like to see different clubs winning the league titles when it becomes a trend, or when it becomes like a monopoly. I kind of lose interest. So I hope it really happens in the Bundesliga next season as well, when someone takes inspiration from what Conte has done and puts that final nail in the coffin for Bayern Munich next season in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, and it's funny as well. You mentioned Morata there and how crucial he has been for Conte in his chief executive role. I think he is classed as chief executive or technical director, whatever it is that role is given these days. But isn't it funny how both of them started at Juventus and they started this 9-year reign as Italian champions, and now it's both of them that have ended it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And as well, I find this amazing, this thing that people don't think he's a very good manager. He's now, I think, and obviously it's only going to increase before the end of the season, because I'm sure they'll go out and win the 3 remaining games as well. But no manager in the history of the Seria or Serie A, as a better points per game record, or a better average points per game record than Antonio Conte. No manager in the history of Serie A. And that's managers including Sacchi, Trapattoni, Lippi, Capello, Mourinho, Ancelotti. You look at the managers, the prestige and the quality of the managers that have managed in that league, and Antonio Conte sits at the top with the points per game average. No manager in the history has got a better points per game record.
That's a fun stat. That's a really fun stat to end this episode. So thank you so much, Chris, once again for joining in this episode. I honestly thought we would probably kind of be able to wrap up in 20-25 minutes, but this has gone 30-35 minutes, which is still fair because we got to discuss some individual numbers, some tactics as well, and why Conte is the star of this Scudetto victory as well. So yeah, it was definitely worth it. So thank you so much for joining once again, Chris, and to all our listeners as well. Thank you so much for tuning into our episodes. And for the patrons, we have a message. We are going to get you bonus content every week or on a bi-weekly basis. So just keep an eye out on Patreon. We'll be doing more and more content as we go. So thank you so much once again to everyone. Until the next episode. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you, mate. Bye.